On Tidemark Talks today, we've got Mike Holcombe. Mike, along with his wife Kate, are the founders of Caitlyn Minimalist. Caitlyn Minimalist is a customized jewelry brand that is a startup and now the #1 selling brand on the Etsy platform. This couple has done really good things with their product, with their marketing, with the growth of the company. So let's have a listen. Welcome to Tidemark Talks. We're here with Mike Holcombe of Caitlyn Minimalist, which I'll have you explain what the company does in a second. But we're grateful to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. This is official. I love it. Been a guest on a few podcasts, but usually it's like, I'm streaming from Zoom or something. But to be in a studio feels legit,
Yeah. Well, and before we got on, we were talking about, our company, Tidemark, is a full-service real estate company. We do brokerage, property management, and acquisitions. But this is really meant to talk about you, your company, what you've done, your growth, so that our other entrepreneurs, and the vast majority of our clients are entrepreneurs and private business owners, might learn from one another and might get inspired by one another, because all the stories are varied greatly. And it's fun hearing how these things got together and how they came together. So maybe with that said, just quick intros. To my right is my son, Taylor Snyder, who runs our brokerage company with our great partner, Pat Lacey, and Basil Newburn runs our property management company and was just awarded the President's Award and through the Institute of Real Estate Management. Good job. Yeah, so we're hitting the bricks pretty good so far. But welcome, Mike. And kind of, give us the overview of what your company is now, what you're doing, and just the basics so that people know what Caitlyn Minimalist is.
Sure, yeah. So we got our start like 10 years ago, just in the living room in Anaheim, doing personalized jewelry. We started on the Etsy platform. My wife started the brand. Back then, I was working a little bit part-time in television and slinging drinks at night. So I definitely wasn't well-versed in women's jewelry back then, but you never know where life brings you. But so she started the brand, and she's just highly focused, highly motivated from the get-go, and so she treated it like a business. And of course, she got a little bit of traction there in the early stages of Etsy. She treated it like a business from the get-go, where most people in the early days of Etsy, they were treating it kind of like a side hustle. They're working their 9 to 5, and then they come home, and then they're answering their emails. But they're not closing the sale because, we were answering within 5 minutes, and we were able to close the sale right away. So we got a lot of traction there from the beginning. And then, 6 months later, we were slowly kind of, seeing some growth. And I left my job to help her full time. And so it's been a good ride ever since, grinding on Etsy, and then eventually opening CaitlynMinimalist.com, because we didn't want to be, just a one sales channel business. They changed their algorithm, and then that changes our business. So we wanted to be more control of our brand. So we launched on Shopify, CaitlynMinimalist.com, late 2019, 2020. And then most recently opening our first brick and mortar store at the Irvine Spectrum. So that's kind of a short.
Go back one though. You lost me on that one. So if they change what, and that would change your business, I missed. So what happens there?
So we were pretty much all of our sales were coming from the Etsy platform.
Oh, okay.
And we realized, because they were doing it, they would make small tweaks in the way that the website is run, where it might slow sales for a bit, and we'd have to figure out what changes were made. And so we'd tweak our listings to make maybe it's keywords. We change the keywords or whatever, so we can get back on top of rankings. And so we noticed that was happening a lot, and we're like, wait, we don't want to always be the slave to their algorithm changes. We want to be in more control of our business, and so that's why we launched CaitlynMinimalist.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there was kind of like an exodus from Etsy, wasn't there, when they started doing that and like sort of deprioritizing sort of local entrepreneurs?
Yeah, Etsy is look, we've built our business on that platform, so I don't really want to trash them
for
much,
sure.
but they do need to make some adjustments. I must say we're the number one seller on that platform.
By the way, congratulations.
Yeah, that's an
Thank you.
incredible
Yeah.
achievement.
That's
Thank you.
huge. That's huge.
But you would think that we would have a better way to
Partnership?
communicate with the executives or someone who's making decisions there, and there really hasn't been much of a communication there. So that's just my one piece of advice. If Etsy's listening, we wish that we could talk to you a little bit more to give them our feedback about what it's like to ultimately build a pretty successful brand on the website, and then venture out and launching its own domain, and then also into brick and mortar. You would think that they would want to know. They would want other sellers to kind of, be successful in that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But even going back, it was a great. I read the story where Kate was going to college, and she had a note from her grandfather and made a special piece with his handwriting. So, I mean, that was clever in itself, but she gained some traction there, or how?
Yes,
because that's really cute.
That's really what sparked it all. She's always been really interested. The whole family's been interested in jewelry, and so she had a piece of her grandfather's handwriting turned into a bracelet. Didn't think much of it. It was just something that was special for her. Her friends saw it, and they obviously wanted to have something similar. And that's when she realized that she had something here that a lot of people want or are interested in. And so that's when she launched the personalized jewelry. So, she was
from
also,
college, or was it after? Or
it was around that
between,
time.
in
It's been
yeah.
a few years, so it's kind of murky as to when
never a dull
exactly, but-
moment, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, but being a first mover in personalized jewelry also helped us early on Etsy, because it was kind of a new niche.
Yeah.
I can say right after we met you guys, when you moved into our building in Irvine, I mentioned your business to my wife, and she's like, "Oh, I'll check it out." So she went on, and like 30 seconds later, she had ordered something for her and my daughter. I was like, "Oh, I wonder why they're successful."
Now, was that truly custom? Or
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was like she sat down with Sierra, they looked at the website, they picked something out, ordered it, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, they figured it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, the sentiment, there's just so much sentimentality to the personalized jewelry. And we saw that a lot of people who were ordering were gifting. Because it really is like just a personalized way to give a great gift. And so that's really how we built the brand early on, is just understanding that most people were coming in because they had some sort of like major event in their life. It was either the death of a relative, where they were memorializing, sorry, tongue twister, memorializing their handwriting, or birth of a child, where they're getting like a name necklace made. And so just trying to practice like empathetic listing from a customer service standpoint, and just understanding that there's just a lot of sentimentality behind, that personalized jewelry.
And that's fantastic. So she's in college, starting to the idea comes about, and now she has to take that to the next step, which is did she see it as an opportunity to be in commerce, whether it be part-time alongside of where was it full-time, or how did it kind of really start to take shape?
She's always been very entrepreneurial.
Okay.
At the bone, and so she treated it like a business from the get-go. Once she realized that she had something there that people really gravitated to, and then she kind of went all in.
Great.
Yeah.
And then you guys met. You were telling me the story of meeting and the kids, and it's great. So maybe give us some background.
Yeah, so she's from Vietnam originally, and immigrated when we met online on a language website, because I was practicing my Vietnamese, which is very, very poor, because I was taking a trip there.
You met the old-fashioned way online. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. It wasn't a dating site, though. It was a language website. She likes to always make sure to. But this website, it was kind of like like social media meets Rosetta Stone, where you have a profile and you meet native language speakers. And so we got a chance to kind of talk there. I took my trip that I was planning on going. We didn't meet, but we ended up Skyping for like a year and a half. And
Wow.
then she was like, hey, one day she's like, I'm immigrating. I was like, oh, well, I live here in Venice. She was immigrating to Anaheim, and then, business and
That is
5
crazy.
kids later. And
Yeah.
so,
5 kids. Wow.
That's awesome.
It's a big
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. That's really exciting. It's exciting. And when we met, I don't know what stage the company was at, but all I remember is there was boxes in the hallway, boxes in the bathroom, boxes down the stairs. Well, I mean, I think that was maybe 5 years ago,
Probably 5 years ago, yeah.
probably about 5.
Maybe not quite.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's
So
2021.
was it always growing? Like, did the idea take shape? Because I'm kind of curious about the designing, how she can keep up with not only the custom stuff, but I know she's doing some other stuff.
Yeah,
too.
just like growth in general has been interesting because we've had a family and we also want to have a good work-life balance, and so we've always how much do we really want to put in to really grow? Like, can we even sustain like a 200% growth year and still coach my son's little league team? Like how active do we want to be? And so we've really, I think the biggest growth year we've had was maybe 50% jump, but that was really because of COVID and everyone was ordering online. So we've kind of had a balancing act where it's been like 20 to 50%, which has been good. I don't know how much of it is us, cognizantly making it in that little percentage range, or it's just natural business growth, but that's kind of the range that we've been. And, we've had some lucky breaks too, like early on, before influencer marketing was really a thing, we had this mom blog on Facebook who had like 3 million followers back in, I think it was like
3 million?
Wow.
3 million followers. Yeah, back in 2015 or 16, who shared our handwriting bracelet listing. And this is all organic too. She just shared it because she liked it. They got like 500,000 shares on Facebook, and we were actually planning a trip to Reno to go visit my sister, and my dad had flown in, my brother's flying in, and it's the night before us taking off, and all of a sudden we're getting all these messages and emails and orders. We're like, what the heck is going on? And it's only me and her, working for the business at the time, and we realized that this thing was kind of going viral on Facebook, and so I had to put my whole family to work on our vacation. Like, my brother's doing orders, my sister's doing customer service, my dad's sitting there like, I flew all the way out here. Like, you guys are just working the whole time. So you got to do what you got to do, when things like that happen. And so, we've caught a couple breaks like that, and so.
And that was early influencer. I mean,
Yeah.
Wow. 3 million. So from there, did that whole influencer market start to take shape? And has there been any other people that have promoted you like that, or?
Yeah, we've gotten some good shares over the years. Marketing's been interesting for us. We didn't really put a lot of money into it until recently, actually. The way we used to market was really just inside the Etsy platform. We knew people were going there, and they were, obviously searching for gifts, and so we were just putting ad dollars, behind certain keywords, and we already knew that Etsy, they had just gone public like in 2016. They were already spending a ton of money to get people to the digital mall of Etsy, and so once they got there, we were, spending money to get them to our site, and that helped us pretty good early on.
That's great. And are you private? You don't have outside? I mean, I'm just kind of more curious.
Yeah, we're 100%
Great.
mom and pop owns, so, a lot of our competitors have taken on some VC money, and we're kind of happy where we're at, like going back to the scaling thing, we don't want any kind of investors that we have to like answer to or want us to like scale at certain speeds that we're not comfortable with.
Right.
Be the Kate and Mike fund, and that's good.
Right? Yeah.
So what's your you said the marketing's changed, initially you were investing in Etsy. So now what's kind of the strategy? Because I mean, we're essentially a marketing company too, and we're kind of trying to navigate the new media, world. So be interested to learn like what you guys are doing and how you're approaching it.
Well, once we realized, going back to what we talked about, not only selling on one sales channel, once we realized that we wanted to launch CaitlynMinimalist.com, we realized that it's a lot harder. You need to get eyeballs there. There's no big sales platforms doing the marketing for you. You got to do all of that yourself. And so it was a real slow couple of years to get it to where it's at today, just through Google ads and kind of advertising to our customer base, which we already kind of had. Social media as well, putting together like a well-crafted social media strategy. And then most recently is going back to the influencer marketing we've hired a couple of PR firms to help us utilize like their influencer lists and kind of getting our product in front of them to share. So
are you comfortable sharing any or what are you comfortable sharing in terms of how effective you've been able to diversify sort of the revenue streams? And is it, and kind of, or not? I mean, we can cut this if we need to. Yeah. I'm just curious, like how much is kind of you've been able to diversify away from
like as far as streams coming in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the goal has always been we wanted to make CaitlynMinimalist.com to be as successful as Etsy. So we're now able to say that we've done that.
That's awesome.
It took about 3 years, though. I think it was probably in the last 12 months where that actually is the case.
Yeah.
So now, actually, most recently, CaitlynMinimalist.com is doing a little bit better than Etsy.
Oh, that's great.
That's a huge achievement.
That is a huge achievement.
So we're excited about that.
Got to feel good too to kind of just have more control over your destiny.
Yes, for sure. And then the brick and mortar too.
Yeah,
which
that's
we just opened
interesting.
like two weeks ago. This is something that's totally new to us. We've been in business almost 10 years now. Never opened a physical store, and we were never like against it. It just didn't. It never really made complete sense for us. We've done so well online, and we're able to achieve those like KPIs with customer satisfaction and revenue and stuff online that we didn't really need to go physical. There's a lot of capital that you need to go physical. There's a lot of overhead, and so it wasn't until this year where I just felt like we needed to strengthen the brand a little bit, and having like a physical location to point to does that.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like the kind of story, has been, it used to be brick and mortar and then it was e-commerce and now you're going back to brick and mortar, which is sort of an interesting story, But it makes sense because it's kind of like the Apple model, right? You want to sort of own the whole, consumer experience.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what we've learned here in the first 2-3 weeks is giving ourselves a chance to see our customers face to face and letting them come in and actually see the jewelry and touch it. You're just ordering online and everything is based on photography really and branding. And so having everybody come in and actually get to feel things, talk to us has been a really unique experience. And we definitely feel like omni-channel with a physical presence is where we need to be now.
Yeah.
You even mentioned that some of the customers were coming in taking photos with Kate.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of personalizing the personalized jewelry.
Well, she's a very private person to begin with. We're not like a founder-led brand because she likes to keep a very private life. I'm actually probably a little bit, you can find me more easily online than you can her. And that's on purpose.
Right.
She likes her privacy. And so having customers come in and get a chance to talk to her, she had a little bit of fangirl moment there where people are taking her pictures and stuff.
So cool.
It's like Wizard of Oz, peek behind the curtain. I see.
Well, I think it's kind of fun participating with you in some measure. We are glad to work with you on your online building, and the store pop-ups are fat. And a plug really for you guys. I went over to the store the other day, and you met me there, and some of the and you could even describe some of the pieces. I mean, antique watches that are super cool. A lot of the customized stuff. I can't remember everything that was in there, but I liked it the way everything was, because it's a great gifting, like you said.
Yeah. We obviously want to bring that online feel to the brand into a physical place. That's we want to make that transition as to feel like you're shopping online with all the all the looks and the feel, the fabrics and all of the ambiance. And so I feel like we've done a good job of that, coloring and stuff. And so as far as products go, we have most of our, like we call them ready to ship. It's our items that aren't necessarily personalized, which we started to kind of get into when we launched CaitlynMinimalist.com, because we built the brand on personalized jewelry, and then we kind of slowly started to get into non-personalized things that we can ship out to you next day, because it's a 6-day business day wait if you order personalized jewelry.
Still pretty quick though.
Yeah. So that's most of our offerings at the store, and then we also have like a small section where we're showcasing personalized and custom jewelry, where you can still order on a kiosk there. But Kate's new obsession is the vintage watches, like you missed.
Yeah.
You mentioned. So that's something new that we've been doing this year, where I think it's week or bi-weekly, we do a vintage watch drop. And her new thing is like going on these treasure hunts to hunt down these watches, because there's nowhere really that you just can go to get these like old used watches. I mean, there's some dealers and brokers, but you're paying a little bit more. She likes the hunt of it. So we took a trip like to Japan, and we're just kind of rummaging through, trying to find all these gems.
Yeah, and between the colors, the look, the styles, all the it's really fun store.
Yeah, I think that's like a big part of you can speak to this more than I can, but the future of retail too is like, it used to be big box, as many variations and types of things that you can purchase. And now people want more like, tastemakers, right? Like they can, narrow down the available products to like things that are good, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that like people will be drawn to that because, the choices are overwhelming. People need help to sort of narrow it down,
Yeah. Also, like reusability and sustainability too is huge with I'm seeing with the younger generation. I just spoke at Long Beach. I speak there every semester to the fashion merchandising, and almost all their questions were, what is our sustainability roadmap or plan, and what are we doing that's has positive effects on the environment and stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
In contrast to like Sheen or
right.
Low cost and child labor types.
But that's something that we've gravitated towards too. So we're a member of 1% for the Planet. So 1% of all of our gross revenue goes to helping fight climate change, and all of our packaging now is recyclable and reusable.
Very cool.
Because we found that over the years, just packaging in e-commerce and shipping, that's where the biggest waste is, really. So
just because of all the material that goes, back and forth.
I'm curious what kind of lessons you've learned, and it's interesting too. You mentioned like Spectrum. The last pair of glasses I bought was at the Warby Parker store in the Spectrum, which is like full online business now. Like it's opening physical stores. But on the sort of, if you will, the digital marketing side, I'm curious kind of what you've learned, because it seems like such a subtle effort, and like I think of how I marketed too. Like I get the Huckberry emails, and I do use Instagram and see stuff. Yeah, I'm just curious what you've learned on how to use that effectively as a primarily online business. How you built your own website, what you've seen to be effective, because it just seems like there's so many different ways to approach it and like draw eyeballs or build brand. It's just, to me, it's just this gigantic field.
There's just a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise out there, marketing noise. And cutting through the noise. How do you do that? I mean, that's the challenge. Sometimes I feel like we're not doing it. Sometimes I feel like we are. And it's just a learning process as you continue to trial and error and try things. Obviously, we try to use tools that help us. We use Klaviyo for email marketing and have set up some good flows for customers. And we have our Pixel in Instagram that helps us track lookalike audiences. Those kind of tools that pretty much every brand is using. But I think cutting through the noise is really hard, especially with social media today. Trends happen so fast now. So there's one example that I use that was from a couple months ago, where everybody online was saying, "Oh, very demure, very cutesy," right? And so then, like the next following week, you had every brand was sending you a newsletter that said, "Oh, very demure" in the subject line. It's like, every brand now is just following these micro trends. And then, do you want to be like every brand, or do you want to stand out? So I have found that I think it's best to just try to just be our authentic self and have people gravitate towards that. We know that we're very good at what we do as far as personalized jewelry and sentimental gifts. So let's be authentic to that, and hopefully that stands out.
I'd imagine that because it's custom too. That once you get a customer through marketing, that their lifetime value is pretty high because. Right, they'd be coming back and ordering more rather than just the one.
Yeah,
it's not just a transactional
especially because
thing.
it is good. It's great for gifting.
Right,
people are always giving gifts. And fashion in general is cyclical, so things change. Yeah, so maintaining a customer for sure.
In that online, you mentioned one challenge that, or we ran across inadvertently, where people will, I don't know what the right wording is, but pirate you. In other words, you play off your name. You've developed this brand, this great following, and then all of a sudden you got people like trying to jump in front and use that and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
Well, yeah, our photography. So we on those early days, like I said, we differentiated ourselves by answering fast and authentically, but also like we put a lot of focus into photography. And just making the product the star, making the jewelry the star of the show. My mom was actually our photographer early on. We used to shoot in my daughter's bedroom, and so because the photography was great, people were starting to take it, and so it's just been a constant.
Like literally use your images.
Yeah, use our images for their website or their listings, and so it's just a constant battle for their photography IP. And it's just kind of gotten blatant with, Alibaba or Shein and a lot of Chinese sellers. And so there's not much we can do there, legally. Like we don't really have a lot of, we can fight it, but it's like whack-a-mole. You knock one seller down and six more pop up. And it takes a lot of funds to do that with the legal team. And so we've just done our best to just ignore it.
Do what we do.
And do what we do. But it's unfortunate because then sometimes people will see that and they'll lump us in with being like a Chinese drop shipper. And so that was another reason why I thought it was a good idea to go with a physical presence to strengthen the brand so that, those kind of allegations are, we try to cease them.
Yeah. Can you talk about how you got into Irvine Spectrum and sort of what that journey was? Because I know there's probably a lot of growing young companies that'd be interested in having a retail presence in Spectrum and South Coast Plaza, and it's challenging. So maybe you can kind of speak to that.
Yeah, it was a challenge. No one wanted to take an email or a call from me at all. And so I have a buddy who his family has 19 or 20 restaurants in the LA area, and I was like, hey, how do I do this? You have some connections in commercial real estate, obviously, because you got so many restaurants. How do I get into the Spectrum? We want to get in there. And he's like, oh, okay, let me just find an email for you, or see somebody who's on the executive team. So he got someone's email. I emailed them. Sure enough, the next day I get a phone call from the leasing director. So, okay, it is who you know a little bit. So networking is what we're trying to do a little bit more this next year. We've been heads down in our laptops and in the business, trying to grow it and raise a family. And so we realized that we need to get out there and meet some more people and kind of get involved a little bit more.
Yeah. We were just talking last week about South Coast Plaza, and that's a possibility.
Hopefully, yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
If they're listening, we want to be there.
We made sure they had your information. They hopefully that'll come to bear. Real quick, jump back fast because of all that online activity. When COVID hit, people are at home. Do you see an uptick?
Oh yeah. That was actually before we moved into the place with you guys, the building that we're in now. We were on top of like a little pet clinic, which is a funny story too. Let me tell the story real quick, and then I'll go back into the growth. So we were on top of this like pet clinic, and just because back then I'm just trying to find a good space that is affordable, but also had a couple of amenities for my staff, like a kitchen and windows and a place to kind of get some fresh air. And the best spot was on top of this pet clinic. And so occasionally you'll get a customer where you don't get everything right? Like we're not going to get 100% of our transactions perfect. So we had this one lady who was very upset about the way things happened with her purchase and started like Googling us and finding saw that we were a pet clinic, and this is not even a real business. They're just LARPing at some pet clinic. I'm like, no, we're here. We're on top. And so we're
that was in Anaheim?
that was actually in Garden Grove.
Oh, Garden Grove, yeah.
Yeah. But that was the building we were in before we moved into the Tidemark building.
Yeah.
So COVID happened when we were in that building, and explosion in that Christmas, explosion in growth and sales, just because naturally everybody's ordering online. No one's going out into a physical store. So sometimes I feel a little awkward talking about our growth during COVID, because it was such it was a horrible time. People were dying and people were cooped up. And so when you kind of share like, our business did great, it's a little, it's tough.
Well, there was a shift in real estate too because of that. We're fortunate to work in the industrial market primarily, and that market exploded, whereas the office market was really hit hard and continues to be because of all the shift in the way people work, the way they, there's work at home, there's part-time work and all that. So it's kind of, we feel the same way. It'd be better if everything was the way it was, but the spike in sales was still there. But it was, you guys were positioned to really capitalize on that because you had, like you're saying, 6 days to get a custom, custom gift. That's pretty rapid.
Yeah, and that's also why we reached out looking for a new building.
Yeah.
And luckily we had you guys to kind of help us, secure a spot like we have now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building. Yeah, you guys are laid it out great, and speaking of a lot of natural light and all, it's awesome. I think that it's interesting, like what you were saying, Taylor, about kind of starting online than brick and mortar. And it was the exact, when I started in real estate, it was the exact opposite. There was a period of time it was only brick and mortar, and then there was that unique period where where I only use the Amazon story because of it. Where they got the drop on Books and Borders or whatever that was, and basically. I mean, that story just blows my mind, where they basically took over their inventory, so to speak, with their platform of selling online, and then basically run them out of business. It's unbelievable.
Big box retail.
Big box retail, yeah.
But they're still, like Mike's talking about, that destination sort of experiential retail, and that still persists, and actually is sort of a leader. I mean, you can see that with you guys, like, it's an amazing high growth company, and now you're kind of like trying to get into those retail destinations, It's interesting, the way that's evolved.
Yeah.
I'm curious to pick up. I'm curious to pick up the thread too on real estate. Just as something we like to ask a little bit about, is the nature of our business. But so you were in your basement or your garage, you said, and then above the pet clinic, and now in the sort of flex warehouse office building in Irvine that you're in. You're kind of looking ahead. I think when a company has a real estate problem, you have a real estate problem, like you're too cramped or it's like not productive for office staff or whatever. If you don't have a problem, then it's not getting in the way of your business. It's facilitating the growth of your business. I was just curious if you could kind of comment on that. Like if making good moves, moving into the building now, has that really helped your growth, or how are you thinking about your next step and kind of having your space fit your needs, even as a mostly online business? Real estate, I think, still plays a role. Curious if you agree, disagree.
I mean, I 100% agree how it plays a role in a lot of different ways, right? Obviously for space so that you can properly run your business, but also I think just with staff sentiment and company culture. So when we were working out of the living room, we got to a point where we had 5 employees come into our living room, and my son John's like running around in diapers and so.
Good thing that one customer didn't come.
Right? We did have a couple customers come to the house. No, but it's like it's a challenge to hire someone to come to your house, and then actually we missed an office. The first one after the house was like a cooped up little small one in Garden Grove that had no windows. And, that's I did an interview out of a janitor's closet in that office. So now that we have the building on White Road, it's beautiful, kitchen and just a great bullpen, and you guys did a great job decorating it. That like in itself is like a selling point. It's like, hey, you know, you got a comfortable place to come in here to work. You know, I think that definitely plays a part into it as well. As far as like forecasting, that's always, you know, tough. How much space do you need? We've never really been super data-driven founders. We have done a lot of things just on gut and what we feel like we need. That's how we went with the building that you guys have, and that's kind of how we're going to go with the next one. But I feel like, you know, trying to match up with our growth over the years to the growth in size of the building maybe might be a good way to go about it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Those instincts are correct because, you know, a lot of, just based on experience, the successful companies that have really done well with real estate have all those sort of metrics in mind, like you are, is, you know, how does it feel to our employees? How does it feel to us? And that productivity and sort of the employee retention is really important. And speaking, you got the pop-up with the Irvine company. One thing they do with their office buildings is try to create the amenitized buildings, try to create them so that the employers look at it the same way. Okay, I can be here and live here, so to speak, because you spend a lot of time at the office and not lose employees. So I think your instincts are right, and I think you're doing the right things now. I think you're starting to get out and look at buildings that you might buy, and it takes time, just like finding a house. It takes time to get out and look at them. So we're trying to get you around, and I know you're going with Pat to check out a building, I think, this week or next week.
Yeah, I think tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. So I think that's great, and a lot of the sizing is tough also. Everybody we worked with is how do I know the right size? Half the time it's just gut instinct.
Yeah.
Seeing
what's available.
And what's available.
Yeah,
You're
the
balancing that.
seems like it's low right now too. So.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we were saying with that COVID effect, but more so with supply and demand because the supply hasn't been there for a long time for industrial. They just land costs and so on, and there hasn't been enough building of that product, so it's been a little bit slim. But you know, your moves are good ones, and I think having all those things in mind will be what you keep in mind for the next building too. Yeah,
it's good feedback too. Like with the building on White Road, you know, 2021 does sound right, and you know, we knew that building we knew was a complete gut and rebuild from the beginning.
Yes,
and I think the things that Kate and Mike are enjoying in that building are intentional decisions we made on the design. I mean, we knew that businesses were gonna want to have people, you know, at the office, in the office, not just, you know, coming out of the sort of full work from home, you know, type of environment. So having a nice space, a well-designed space, a comfortable space to be, you know, while still kind of maintaining the function and all of that was goals that we had. So it's, you know, good that's
and the designer. I mean, to your credit, you put people in and amongst yourselves. You put people in and amongst the product. I mean, from what I see. So, is there any magic to that you found now that you're in and sort of operating? Is there any? I mean, is there any? Maybe it's just what you dreamt of. I'm not sure.
As far as the building goes?
Yeah, kind of how you...
First of all, you guys are really good at what you do because we saw that building before the transition, and there was just like walls everywhere, like it was a maze.
It was, yeah.
And we just didn't see what it was. We didn't have the vision in our heads. We just don't do this on an everyday basis like you guys.
Most people don't.
Yeah, and so we're just like, I can't picture how this is going to look. And then we get there, and it's just like a full transformation. We were just shocked, and we were very happy, pleased. So when we go to look at these new buildings, I'm trying to think of it from these perspectives that you guys do. You know, of how we can transform this, and I still don't quite get it. But but I just have to trust it a little bit, you know.
Yeah, the designer who did your building is doing another one for us right now, looking at variable ways to make it better. And so, you know, she's available for us too, in case you get a building that's dog-eared and not quite.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them because many of the industrial buildings, the majority of the stock was built between the 1970s and 1990s. So it's you know, there hasn't been, and the new stuff has been enormously expensive. So I think trying to find that B and C stock and then turn it into something might be the way to go. Just
and the way the offices used to be laid out are drastically different, right?
Yeah,
like the way people just conducted business in general, and just a lot of like little small offices.
Yeah,
not a lot of you know, cooperative space.
Yeah.
Well, and with your company, I mean, I think the catchphrase is jewelry crafted with love, which I think when you describe that, when you're gifting and grandfather and I mean it's fantastic, giving back to the environment. It's fantastic, and so the store. I encourage everybody to go to the store because it's fun. Because it's fun, great staff. I've got to get our family over there to look at some stuff, and it looks just tremendous. So I know that. What is, like Taylor was saying? What is the process if you have a certain level of success there at that center, they might show you some other spaces? Is that what they do?
Well, so we have a temporary lease there. We wanted to kind of test the waters as well too, like make sure that this is the right decision. Kind of feeling like this is the right decision. So we do ultimately want to get a permanent lease. So we just have to wait for the offer, really. We wanted to come out, guns blazing. We put a lot of effort into the design. We worked with a woman named Tanya from Wheat Designs, who also did our house. We like Tanya. She's great at what she does, and so her vision was kind of same as Kate's, and they did a good job at bringing it to life. But yeah, ultimately, we want to have a permanent spot there. We'll see. And
you're always looking ahead, but steady as she goes. You're just doing what you guys do well. Is that
I know. People always ask me too, like, where do you guys see yourselves in 5 years? I'm like,
You're looking at your kids. Well, they'll be 5 years older, and
8 years ago we were still in the living room, so I don't know. Ultimately, all I know is we're gonna just continue to do what we do. I do think that omni-channel is the way that we want to go. If that means that we've got a few locations up and down California, or maybe in another state, that would be awesome. But who knows? Maybe it is just all online. But I really feel like omni-channel is our way.
Yeah. So I'm just going to spell it because we're gonna have your name up. But Caitlyn is Caitlyn.
It's Caitlyn.
Okay.
She goes by Kate with a K though, so that gets confusing sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, minimalist, and that gets you to their website and. Great stuff. So, any other questions we've got for Mike, or?
No, that was great. I appreciate it.
No, awesome.
I know where I'm getting my Christmas gifts from.
Yeah. Awesome.
I think it's such a good idea.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, and every, like, I love that her idea came from her own idea, meaning she just implemented what she was in her heart and got it put together. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And
her designs are fantastic.
Yeah, you guys are tastemakers.
It stems from her passion, because it was something that she was ultimately passionate about. You could see it in her work too.
Yeah.
Her brain doesn't turn off.
Yeah.
I come from bartending, and I got my degree in television, and my brain.
Wait, go back to that.
It
I
might
love
be a
that
monkey
story.
like playing a little tambourine. We're driving. She's just thinking about something.
Yeah. 5 kids too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Screaming in the back. So.
But you were in television. Go into that because you started in television and.
I was working in nightclubs and bartending and realized, okay, this ultimately is not a path I want to. Finish. I don't want to hit the finish line.
But when we were talking, you were good at that. You kept people.
Hey,
you keep people entertained.
I know how to keep people entertained and have a good party. Start the party.
Right.
Probably made a terrible drink, but I was really good at like getting everybody to have fun.
Yeah.
But I did. Yeah, I didn't want to, like I said, finish everything doing that. So I went back to school for television at Northridge and got my degree in TV. Worked a little bit in television, doing some teleprompting while also bartending.
Yeah.
And how does and then now managing a successful business? What's that journey like?
Yeah, like I said, I never thought I'd be in women's jewelry, but I learned a lot from my wife. I've always had like a lot of ideas coming from TV and stuff, but she's very good at just getting, I don't know if we curse on here, but getting shit done.
Yeah. Oh, no, we like that. Please.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like she is an executor. So we actually make a pretty good team because she can execute and I kind of have a little bit more of like a macro vision and kind of help with ideas and just kind of, BS with her a little bit and see what sticks, and she actually executes. a little bit more than me. So.
We see a lot of that. You know, it's sort of the yin and the yang. You have to have that balance of talents and any small. We've been around about 5 years. We've gotten settled with that. We understand a little better of who we are and what people are good at and trying to get them in the right roles. And it's fun because it's almost like putting the pegs, in the right spots. And then things start to move better and work better. And I think that is your strength.
She knows, when to call my bluff or, when to actually listen. So like with the building on White Road, I showed her to her and she was kind of like, what? We need this? Like she just didn't feel like that was what we needed. I'm like, yeah, babe, I think we need that. And then ultimately that was the right decision, but she trusted me and went forward with it, so we find what works,
Yeah. That's great. That didn't hurt for the marriage either. You got to have a little bit of give and take and back and forth.
Especially when you're working with each other 24/7.
Yeah.
You gotta,
well, there's growing pains of that, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sure.
But you get through it and you make it work. So very fun, though. Very fun. Great company. And we can't thank you enough for coming on. We can't thank you enough we're glad you work with us. We're thrilled by that.
We are appreciative of you guys as well.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see where it goes. I think the sky's the limit for you guys.
Yeah, we're appreciative of Zill Media. They're putting this on for us.
Thank you.
We're going to try to push it out to the right people and get people learning from one another. And your lessons are great. I think that having the right people on the bus, getting the right product, the right attitude of that product, you're way ahead of a lot of companies in your channels. And again, encourage everybody to visit the store and for gifting, like you said, we know where we're going. So it's a lot of fun. So we're just thrilled. It's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right.
Very fun.